Welcome to Igniting Change, the podcast where we explore innovation, industry trends, and how tech for good is solving the world's biggest challenges. Let's get into it.
Merel, thank you so much for joining us today. Did you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what organization that you are with?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for having me. Well, my name is Merel Rikveld. I'm from Amsterdam and I work at Justdiggit as a head of communications. And Justdiggit is all about cooling down the planet. So basically, we are an NGO founded in the Netherlands, but active in Africa. And our mission, as we said, is to regreen the planet and by regreening, also cooling down. Personally, I have a background in media. So I started my career in communications and also in sales, working for Viacom, for the brands MTV, Comedy Central. And then later on, I moved over to a Dutch broadcasting channel. And I always loved working in media and communications. And I believed in the power of communication to drive change. After, working in media for almost 11 years, I really wanted to use that power for something a little bit more transformative. So I decided to join Justdiggit 6 years ago at this point. And that really felt like a natural step. So Justdiggit is for me a place where creativity meets climate action and all that in a very positive and also energizing way, which is, I think, quite special. So yeah, that's me.
It's really funny, actually. I had a very similar journey. So I worked in advertising and marketing. And I was a media planner many, many years ago, a long time ago. And I moved from that space into the for good space. And actually there's a huge difference in terms of like the way that people work. But also I noticed, and maybe it's changed now, but the speed and the pace in which people worked. I felt like I was, and again, many years ago, and I'm not going to name names or whatever, but it felt quite very rat racy. We were just on it all the time, whereas the pace definitely slowed when I transitioned into this space. Did you find something similar, Merel, or was it?
Absolutely. I think this is very different. Although I do have to say that also within Justdiggit, I mean, we love to keep things going. So we're also not that big. I mean, we have 65 employees. So it's different from NGOs like the Red Cross, for instance, who have, of course, thousands of employees. So I can imagine that might go sometimes a little bit slower. But yes, there's definitely a huge difference. And I can't deny that although it was a very thoughtful decision to move to the NGO world. I do have to say that the first 6 to 12 months really had to adapt on a lot of things. The corporate world is so different, but it also, it brought me a lot. I kept going, but the first year was quite tough, to be honest.
And you know what? I think it's important for people to know that, because there is always, if you're coming from a space, from a corporate space, and you're going into the not-for-profit space, it certainly was for me. It was a stark difference, and I think it's important for people to know and to understand that, because I do feel like there are different sides to the coin. But one of the benefits I found from working more heavily in this space is that again, my experience, but everyone is so much more collaborative and open to collaborating. Whereas I felt like there was a lot more competition on the other side.
No, absolutely. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, when you work for a corporate, I don't think it really matters which one. I think there's always a lot of competition. And although you can have a great network and everyone likes each other, then still, of course, everyone is going for their own thing. And I think that's definitely different. I mean, everyone wants to work together with each other, and you're all going for the same goals. Yes, that's absolutely true.
And so you said it was a very considered move. You wanted to have more of a positive impact, which is amazing. Is there something in particular that stood out for Justdiggit that you were like, oh my gosh? Was there a personal connection, or was it just this organization look amazing and you wanted to just get behind it? What was it that drew you to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I have to be, if I'm totally honest, I was searching on LinkedIn and websites just to look into, okay, where can I use my skills and my knowledge? And and not go into a completely different world. Like I said, I mean, I would rather, it was pretty clear to me that I wanted to work for smaller organizations where you can have a lot of impact instead of working with so many people that you can't really see the results in a smaller shorter period of time. So that was one thing that I focused on. And then Justdiggit was one of the companies or organizations that sometimes was visible throughout the broadcasting channel where I worked for. So I saw the ads, and then I saw the before and after images, and I was like, oh, this looks amazing. I would love to know a little bit more about this. So then I looked them up, or us at this point. And then I saw that they had a vacancy for, at that time, it was more focused on business development. So I applied, and all of a sudden I had the job, and I started. So I started in business development because that was basically the vacancy that was open at that point. And I applied and I got the role. But then after 1.5 years, almost 2 years, I really miss my contacts within the media space. So it made more sense internally to switch to communications again. So that's what I did. So within those 6 years, I've been working in business development for 2 years, and then 4 years in comms.
Amazing. You touched on it earlier, but you talked about the results. And do you know what? Something that really struck me when I went on your website was the before and after. There's a slider that you can see when you start to 4 years later. And I think that immediately drew me in. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Can you tell us what recent milestones or moments have can best capture the impact that the work that Justdiggit do?
Yes, of course. I think, like I said, our main goal is to regreen African landscapes. And then, of course, Africa is a huge continent. So in this case, I think it's good to mention that we focus on sub-Saharan Africa, and then in particular in East Africa. So it's Kenya, Tanzania, and in West Africa, it's Senegal. And I think one of the most powerful milestones has been restoring almost 500,000 hectares of land in Kenya, Tanzania at this point, which is, when we compare it to the US, I would say 5 times New York City, just to give you a bit of a feeling. We've been bringing back over 23 million trees. And I'm saying bringing back because we don't plant trees, but we restore trees. Also because planting trees in this area is just not an option. If for a little seedling, you have to have a lot of water. And of course, there's a lot of scarcity when it comes to water. So it makes sense. It's better to prune the trees, bushes, and they can grow into trees again. And we've been digging over, almost 700,000 water buns, as we like to call them, earth smiles. Maybe you've seen them on the websites, the half-shaped holes. They look like little smileys from above. And that is rainwater harvesting. And after a while, when the water doesn't flush away anymore, but stays inside the buns, then the vegetation can grow back. So we've been digging almost 700,000 of them. So I think that is definitely one of, a couple of milestones, but what really captures the impact is in the end, also watching the communities take the ownership. So that is very important. So for example, the local champions are now training others to restore their lands. And the Maasai women, they run over 36 grass seed banks, which makes them much stronger, much more powerful within their communities, because through the sales of the grasses, they benefit financially. They can, for example, buy school uniforms for their kids, or they can buy a cow for the whole village, or they can invest in so many things. And especially within the Maasai community, I don't know if you know much about that, but that is very, very special, because normally the women in the Maasai communities, they don't have a lot to say. So they of course they work on the lands and they take care of the children, but they're not really allowed to earn money. And now that we've been doing this, after those years, they sometimes even hire the men to work on the lands, which is amazing. Cultural shift. So I would say these are the milestones that really captured our impacts.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing work. And I would encourage anyone listening today, do go to the website, because it's beautiful, some of the visuals. And I love the fact that you called them smiles. You're right, that's what they do look like. I don't think you've said that, but it gives you a really wonderful feel for some of these milestones that you've achieved. It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I think it's really interesting in this space, especially right now. I think things can be quite tough, and I feel like there's less focus on the climate story, and what focus there was, sometimes it can be quite doom and gloom, and it can, like, how do you keep people inspired and get them to still take action? I think that's a really hard challenge that you're facing, and you're not alone in this. There's lots of people in this space right now that are feeling it, but how do you keep people inspired to take action?
Yeah, that's a very good question, a valid question, because at this point, of course, I think everyone is longing, well, most people are longing for hope and positivism at this point. So it's definitely difficult in times like this, but sharing a hopeful and a positive message is basically our strategy. So that's what we're all about. That's what we've been doing from the start. And so it's not something that we all of a sudden applied. It's just something that is in our DNA. And I think in the age of, well, basically climate anxiety, it is super important, but it's also refreshing because there's so much, like you said, so much doom and gloom. If you open it, well, I mean, maybe you start scrolling through your phone or you watch the news, or it's basically the world is on fire in many ways. So instead of talking about what goes wrong and what's lost and what doesn't go well, we rather focus on the things that are possible. So what is possible and what can we do about this? And one of the things is, well, pretty simple. It's turn dry land into green again. So through positive storytelling and using beautiful imagery, but also putting local heroes, like I just explained about the Maasai women, for instance, putting local heroes on the forefront, we hope to remind people that we can make an impact and that change is possible. So it's a lot about storytelling, of course. So we have great photographers and videographers in Kenya and Tanzania to film and to use the drone to really show the impacts on the ground. And we try to share positive stories in our newsletter, and we do a lot on social media, but it's true, it is difficult. Also with all the regulations on Meta, especially in the EU at this point. And just the whole world and some precedents. So it's definitely not easy, but we keep doing what we do and we try to stay in our lane and share a hopeful message.
And I think you do it beautifully. And I think something else that you do, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, but you keep everything simple. And I mean that like as a positive thing, because I feel like when I was going through the site and I was trying to understand more about the organization, I felt like I truly understood what you were trying to do. And, that's an amazing thing to be able to do, because actually some of the stuff that you do can be quite complex. There's a lot more to it behind the scenes, but the way that you communicate that to audiences is brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliantly simple, but yet that's not easy to do in itself.
Yeah, glad to hear that, because that's also sometimes a bit of a struggle. But of course, you really want to communicate about a lot of things because we do so many different things. And half of the techniques that we do, we don't even mention because, like you said, it makes it a bit complicated perhaps. And what we really want is to create awareness, and on the European continent mainly, because of course we are based in Amsterdam and we focus on Germany, the UK, Belgium, and the Netherlands. So in this case, talking about the European continent because we're visible here, but also of course globally via social media, we really try to create awareness, but keep it simple because you want to spark something. And if people like yourself are interested or they want to know more, then of course they hopefully go to your website where they can read everything about all the different techniques and whatever we do, but just in the above the line media, and also also a little bit in the below the line and on social media, we try to keep it simple to really engage the people.
And it works. Again, for those listening, this conversation is happening as a result of an advert that was at the cinema through the Taylor Swift film, I might add. So we were laughing and joking about this before we started recording. Crystal, our marketing manager, she and her daughter were at I think they were going to see the Taylor Swift album release party film that was released fairly recently, an advert came on for Justdiggit. And Crystal saw this advert and came away really excited. So excited, she went straight onto the website. She was trying to get hold of them. This eventually led to us speaking with you, Merel, and to get you on the podcast, because we wanted to shine more of a light on this and the work that your organization does. But I mean, that just goes to show how powerful that message was in the cinema in a completely different environment. But the message was simple and impactful enough to have caused this to happen, events to happen. So yeah, hats off to your team for getting that message out there, because it's obviously, I think, having a positive impact.
Absolutely. And it's lovely to hear that. And I have to admit, it happens quite often that we get into touch with, organizations or people who would love to do something or like to support us via, for example, out of home or cinema ads, or in the Netherlands, we also have some TV ads. And I do want to mention that, of course, we create the ads. And thanks for the compliment, but it's also thanks to all those media partners, because they support us in kind. So we don't pay for our marketing and communications activities. So if we are visible, it's given to us. So that is so amazing. So thanks to all these partners that basically give their advertising space away for free to Justdiggit is amazing, because otherwise we wouldn't have been here. Thanks to, in this case, it was DCM. Based UK, thanks to them showing our ads, we're now here. So that's we can't do it alone. It's proof that we have to do this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, coming back to our earlier point of, there's so much collaboration that happens in the not-for-profit space. It's really, like, I find it really quite inspiring, and it's like infectious. Like, I love hearing about this stuff, and I love being able to help inspire other organizations to understand what might be available and what might be possible for them. So, so diving into the work a little bit more, how are you using technology to make a difference here in this space?
Well, we do that in different ways. So basically, tech, I think it allows us to see and share impact like never before. So, of course, we use satellite imagery, remote sensing, and we do that to monitor the vegetation growth. We track the soil moisture. We visualize the regreening progress. So there's the very technical part. I'm definitely not part of that, but I know that we do this. But luckily, we have specialists within Justdiggit who know all about this. And we also use that, of course, that data to decide where to perhaps start regreening next. So when we started in Senegal almost 1.5 to 2 years ago now, of course, we did soil samples and stuff like that, but we also use satellite data, remote sensing to really decide where to start. Of course, it's a big country, so what's the best place to start? So that's one way that we do that. So the data, it doesn't really stay within a dashboard or whatsoever. We really try to use it also to empower the communities, but also the funders to see the real results. So, for example, in the cinema ad that we've been discussing, I don't know if you've seen it on the website, but we use the satellites imagery from Planet. So Planet is also supporting us, and we use that in the cinema ads. So to really show the scale, the scalability, to zoom out and show the scale of, in this case, sub-Saharan Africa. And then, of course, what we've been doing, that it is that you can see it from above, but it's also, although we are very proud of the results, but it's still rather small, and we have to do a lot of different things. So we use it in communication as well, but we also use it, of course, to show to sometimes the farmers that they can see it from above, from the sky, what the difference is between 4 years ago and now. So basically, we combine technology with local training on site, with mobile tools like SMS services and storytelling in order to spread the knowledge and to inspire people.
Amazing. And am I right in thinking you have a Regreen platform?
Yes, that's correct. We do have a Regreen platform. Yes. So we have a Regreen platform that's called Greener Land. That's a website that goes a little bit beyond Justdiggit. So that's a platform where you can find all sorts of information about regreening techniques. So if you live in, let's say, Morocco, so in North Africa, but you would love to know a little bit more about what can I do in order to regreen my own land, then you can go there and you can choose the different soil types, or I live on a hill or a slope. I have stones on my land whatsoever. So you can cross it all out, and then you will receive advice based on where you live and what you can do. So maybe it's better to dig bunds, or maybe not. Maybe it's a good thing to start with kitchen gardens, etc., etc. So that's one thing. So it's called Greener Land, and it's connected to Justdiggit. But the core of our digital platform is our app called Kijani, and Kijani means green in Swahili, which is the language in East Africa. And it's an app that provides farmers in sub-Saharan Africa with all the tools they basically need to regreen their own land successfully. So the app users can follow digital courses on proven regreening techniques to improve their land. So we have different courses in the app now. One is bun digging, pruning your trees, also planting trees, but also all different types of courses that you can follow as soon as you downloaded the app. And the benefit of the app is that farmers can use it whenever they want or whenever they can. Because sometimes nowadays we go from village to village we call that a movie roadshow. So we go there, and I say we, but of course we do this together with local partners. But we go there and then we show them how to prune the tree. We show a movie about regreening your land, and that is great, and it works very, very well. But you can imagine if you want to do this on a larger scale, we just can't go from village to village because we will not be finished in time. And I mean, talking about the pace from the corporate world in this, I mean, we are in a hurry, so we have to really scale up. So that's why we came up with the idea to start digital regreening, and the app was launched last year in Tanzania, and over the summer it's actually a couple of weeks ago we also launched in Kenya. It doesn't mean that you cannot download the app if you live in Zambia or somewhere else, but the whole marketing and the communications around it is nowadays just in Tanzania and in Kenya.
Amazing. So essentially you're using that to help you scale your operation, aren't you? It's allowing you to have impact on a much bigger scale than you could
we have to
in person. And I guess you're at that stage now where you do have to lean on technology to enable that to happen. And there are always going to be challenges with that, but it sounds like you're on a good path to make that happen.
Yeah, I think it's a great start, but we're definitely not there.
Talk to me about that. So why do you think you're not there yet?
Well, I think we have a lot. I mean, we have the knowledge, we have an app, but what's now the challenge is, first of all, having people to download the app. So that is one thing. And of course, communications is involved, but also internet penetration, access to internet, but also the money. I mean, people can have a smartphone or a smart feature phone because it also works on a smart feature phone. So nowadays, more and more people in rural areas have that, but then do they have the money to buy data? So that is the second thing. So that is definitely a challenge, but also how can we make sure that people really want to use the app? So it has to be user friendly, of course. Some people can't really read, or so then we have to work with a lot of voice messages and lots of videos, but also what really makes them want to use the app and also come back. So if they did course 1 and they started, then hopefully they really start to see the benefits, more crop yields, more water, etc., etc. And we know that as soon as people start to notice that it really helps them, they will do peer-to-peer or mouth-to-mouth, and they will spread the message. You would love to have them back in the app to start maybe course 2 or course 3 or so. Yeah, I think that is basically the biggest challenge, how to make it an app that is very attractive to use.
Yeah. And I think, do you know what? I think that is a big challenge that a lot of organizations face, because I think it's really tempting. And this is the case with any kind of technology, whether it's new, old, whatever. And I'm definitely seeing it at the moment with AI. Everyone's like, we need this new app and it has to use AI, machine learning, and it has to do this. And it's like, cool. But think about the value exchange. Like if someone is going to take the effort to download that app on their phone, like what's going to keep them engaged? What's going to keep bringing them back to said app, and like how are they going to realistically use said app? Like you gave a nod to it earlier, but internet penetration is a huge thing in Africa. You know, access to data. So something we learned when we've done quite a few projects out in Africa is, you know, creating a solution that people can use offline when they don't have access, but they can still consume content or get the information they need when they need it, you know, at a time convenient to them. I think there's so many considerations, but it's like whenever you're coming up with a solution, you have to design and build that solution with those end users. And you talked about it, I think, earlier in our conversation, Merel, that like you want to enable these people to carry on doing what they're doing and to be able to do it. You know, you don't want to just give them something and then everything stops with that. They need to be able to carry this on. And I think it comes back to empowering people to be doing this on their own terms, in their own way, what fits with their schedule, how they live life. And I think that's a huge important consideration when you're designing or developing any kind of technical solution. But it sounds like you've been on a journey, but it's great because you've identified challenges and it's like, right, well, how can we overcome these challenges now? How can we work together and work out what really resonates with these users? Because you're right, at the end of the day, I think this always comes back to a very simple value exchange. If you want people to engage with your product, what value does it give to them? And is it enough to make them use it and want to use it and use it on a regular basis? And I know that I'm really massively simplifying that, but that really is what it comes down to.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
So you're on a journey with that, which is exciting, but it's good because so many people go into these projects and I think some people have the attitude of, right, we've done that, on to the next thing. And it's like digital, especially tech, there's so much continuous improvement that is needed to actually get that to a good place. And I imagine it's going to be the same with, you mentioned the satellites and the sensors that are involved in terms of monitoring. Like, it's not a simple, right, set up and leave it. Like, oh my gosh, the maintenance and everything that comes with that is like, people just conveniently forget how much is needed there, I think. But yeah, okay. So talk to us about the role that creative storytelling can play in connecting the people on the ground and those that can help really amplify their efforts. What role does the creative storytelling play here?
Well, basically everything. I mean, storytelling is so important. Of course, content is key. You hear that all the time, but it's absolutely true. Sorry to say that, but it is true. So data shows really what is happening, but the stories show us why it matters.
Yeah.
If we want to connect that what we're doing in order to get the funding in or to move people, then you really have to show them why it matters. So through short films, out of home campaigns, social media content, drone visuals, footage, but also collaborations with corporates that we already have, or brands or influencers or things like this. Now, being on this podcast, by doing that, we really try to make people aware of the fact that, well, first of all, regreening is possible, that it is also quite simple. And I mean, if I say it's simple, of course, it is not really simple, but like we already discussed, it's also not very difficult to understand. So when someone in Amsterdam or London sees an ad and they see it was dry and now it's becoming green again, then they see the impacts immediately. And then hopefully they understand that you can do this. If you do this on a larger scale, then we can do massive things. So hopefully by doing that, awareness turns into action. Like Crystal reached out to us and gave us this platform of the opportunity to talk about this. And then, maybe someone works at a corporate and thinks, I'm in sustainability and we have to do something with CSR, or we want to invest in things that let's look into this. Or it can also be someone who is now looking for a Christmas gift and is like, what can I buy? Can I buy a perfume or another pair of socks? But I can also maybe buy a bund or an Earth Smile, because you can easily buy that on the website. You get a certificate and it's a green gift. So it is, storytelling is everything. And if we don't tell the story behind the regreening, Of course, that's also not good. So we do try to share a lot of stories about the pastoralists and the farmers in newsletters. On social media, we also have a sub-channel where we go a little bit more in depth. So, of course, on the regular social media posts, it's more about the visuals. But then if you would like to know a little bit more, you're keen to learn more, then you can subscribe to the sub-channel. And then we give more in-depth information about the farmers. So yeah, storytelling is everything.
So you kind of touched on it. See, and I think, and the reason I'm drilling into this a little bit more is because I know there's going to be a lot of organizations out there that have a lot of data. And I think we're in this age where everyone's like, collect all the data, keep it all. But then how do you turn that into stories? Like, are you combing through that data, or are you looking for the stories and then using the data as evidence? Which way does it work for your organization? And there's no right or wrong answer here. I'm just genuinely curious because I know I've spoken to a lot of organizations that are very keen on collecting all the data. But sometimes I say it almost feels like death by data, like there's too much data. And you need to know what data is really key to help you kind of tell those stories. It's hard. Chicken and egg.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think, the most important data for us in order to communicate about it is how many buns, so how many earth miles, how many trees, how many hectares of land did you regreen? Because people want proof. So if they see the before and after, then of course they're curious to know a little bit more about how big is the land. So what have you achieved? And also the benefits. So then what does it mean? Because, in Kenya, for example, the project area is a wildlife corridor. So it's in between two national parks. So as soon as the animals start to migrate, then of course it's better if the area is green, because then they can make a stop and will have something to eat or find water, etc. So that is also a thing that we communicate about, but we can't focus on all the data. I mean, we can't really do an elephant counting and focus on the more the financial impact. So we have to make decisions. We do have a MEL team, so monitoring, evaluation, and learning team, but of course, like I said, we are with 65 people across the 2 continents. So we have limited resources. So we do have to focus on a few things. And I don't know if you've seen our impact report, but we always publish our impact reports in May every year. And then we focus on quite a few topics. And those topics, that is what the data, that is what we use in basically everything that we do. So, but more or less, it's pretty much focused on hectares of land being regreened.
I just love how focused you are. It's brilliant, and it's all part of that being able to simplify things so that you can really communicate in an effective, or the most effective way. It's absolutely brilliant, and I think my takeaway from that is stay focused, and then it will lead to better decisions, I think, and better and simpler comms for your audiences. So yeah, that's my takeaway from that.
That's good to hear, because sometimes it's pretty tempting to move away from the things that you do, because then, sometimes, of course, you hear, okay, climate is becoming less important for lots of organizations. So everyone is now, I'm just saying something, but focusing on women empowerment. So then, of course, it's quite tempting to think, oh, maybe we have to jump on that train as well. Although, of course, we do something there are benefits when it comes to the women in this case, but you can't move the whole organizations towards that. So, but it is sometimes tempting to go for the
yeah, absolutely, short-term gain. Honestly, I think it's the thing of beauty when you're able to stand strong and stay focused. And I think that is something that many, many organizations and people struggle with, especially now I feel like we're in a space where there's lots of change and lots of uncertainty, and you don't know what, and I think in that time, it's very easy to become distracted or not as focused, and you can shift and it's all fine being agile and moving and quite fluid. But I think staying focused is definitely a thing of beauty. And I think that will stand the test of time, to be honest with you. Okay, so moving on then, what's the next big thing in Tech for Good through your lens right now? So, is there anything still missing in the climate tech space that could really accelerate restoration?
Yes, I think there's something missing. Otherwise, I think we were done. Yeah, no, I think, yeah, of course. I mean, there's so much knowledge. So I don't think the knowledge, that's not the thing that's missing. I mean, the knowledge already exists. There are so many scientists, NGOs like us, so many other NGOs, beautiful things, experts who really know how to restore degraded land, how to improve agricultural yields, and so on and so on. But I think the challenge is how to unlock that knowledge. So how to share information in a way that, well, as we already discussed when we talked about the app, how can we share the information in a way that it's appealing so that really people really want to do that, but it's also understandable, personalized. I mean, you can't do exactly all the things everywhere. So sometimes, of course, it depends on local conditions like soil type or maybe the local microclimate or whatsoever. So I think what's really important is that we need to be able to respond to people's real questions and concerns. So, for example, aren't digging earth smiles, isn't that harmful for my cattle when they walk there and all of a sudden there are buns there? Or what should I do when I all of a sudden find a big rock on my land and I just started digging? So, or how can I best prune a tree? So I think the science is there, the tech is there. And also with AI, of course, I mean, ChatGPT and others, we can already give very good advice. So we also know how to tell the stories to the farmers, but then it needs to come together. Like we discussed, how do you make that story popular and how do you explain this in a simple way when we're not there in person to maybe guide or teach the farmers? How do we bring this knowledge to the people who may have a smartphone but not always the money to be online? So what it basically needs in a nutshell, sorry, it's a bit long, but that to bring this all together, the scientific knowledge, the experts experience from the trainers, engaging community and technology. I think that is really missing. And if we find that thing, then I think we can really accelerate nature-based solutions and restoration.
I think it's a really good answer. And I don't think it's understanding how it all works together as well, because it's not, things aren't in silos. Like it has to all work together. And I think when there's lots of changing things, it just makes it harder, like much, much harder. So Merel, tell me, if you had, and this is a really hard question, no judgment here, but had unlimited resources, and I know that you do not, but like if you did have unlimited resources, what's the next bold move you'd make to help like the planet regreen faster? Like what would you focus on?
Yeah, interesting question, because you never really think about this, because having unlimited resources, I mean, that is
has unlimited resources, I might add.
But I think my answer would be that I would try to build like a global regreening network. And I know this sounds a bit vague, but basically an ecosystem where you can combine tech, finance, and storytelling, because we do need the finances in order to do this. So where you can basically focus on the degraded different landscapes and then show or look at the path to restoration. So maybe in like an open source platform where everyone can have access to, so you can identify potential regreening sites, but also connect them to potential funders or micro funders or big funders, and also showcase the progress in real time. Of course, we already tried to do that with satellite, but if you can really do that on a larger scale, and not only maybe in sub-Saharan Africa, but also in different places in the world, I think that would be amazing. Yeah, trying to turn the sometimes still abstract climate change into a visible movement that is really accessible to everyone. And I think if I had unlimited resources, then I would love to convince the telcos, for example, to give everyone in sub-Saharan Africa access to the app, for instance, at no cost. So no data cost, just give them access. But of course, not only to watch the Premier League, but also to use this particular app or have it pre-installed when they buy a phone. Or and I think another very good example is Duolingo. I mean, if you look at Duolingo, they do such an amazing job in, well, I use Duolingo keep coming back. I mean, that all is basically haunting you. Like you haven't done your course today.
You need to do it.
Of course, it can be annoying, but in a very good and smart way. So yeah, if you have a limited resource, I would love to pick their brains and use their time in order to make our app better. Yeah, I think that will be it.
Amazing. Well, Merel, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. It's been fascinating. And what I would say to anyone, Merel, if anyone was listening today or is listening today, and they wanted more information, what would we say? Would we say go to the website? How can they?
Yes, well, definitely visit the website and follow us on LinkedIn or social media, and then they can reach out. I mean, we have, of course, our contact details on the website. They can look for me on LinkedIn, send me a message, more than welcome. So I think that will be great.